In today's session, we're going to talk about slope of a line once again. You can find the slope of a line by counting the boxes that represent the rise over the run on the coordinate plane. That's one method. So if you're provided with a graph, here's what you'll do. Remember that a line has a constant slope, so we can take points that fall on the intersection of two points here. I'm going to count up 1, 2, and over 1, 2, 3. It's rise over run, so the rise counted up 2, and it counted the run of 3. So this is our horizontal, and this is our vertical. And that gives me this positive slope of 2 over 3. Looking at a second one, again, our line is going into infinity in both directions, and we see that slope is constant. It's a straight line. So we can go from one point to another, and again, these are points that fall at the intersection of the x and y lines there. This one's going downhill. It's falling from left to right, so I know it's a negative slope. I'm going to count those boxes for the rise. 1, 2, 3, and it goes over 1. It's a negative 3 over 1, which means my slope is negative 3. That's one way to identify the slope if you're provided with a graph. But more times than that, we'll be given some points that fall on the line. So what does that look like? Well, we're going to be told that these 2 points are on a line, and it's not graphed for us, but we'll graph it at some point here, and we could easily graph these points right away if we wanted to. I could easily go and say the first point is negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I could graph the other one as 8 and 8. Let me do that a little clearer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And there's my line, okay? Now the question is, what's the slope of that line? Now I can count my rise over run. All right, my line is not the best there, but let's do the calculations. I'm going to be identifying these 2 points as my first point here, which I graphed right there, is my x1, y1, and the second point, which is graphed right there on the right, is my x2, y2. These little subscripts just tell me which point I'm talking about. Into the formula, these numbers will be replaced. y2 is 8, y1 is 6, x2 is 8, and x1 is a negative 4. Be careful how you subtract that negative 4. So the difference, or the change here, is 2. Add the opposite, and I get a 12. I simplify that to a 1 to 6 ratio, and there's my slope. I count up 1 and over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's a point right there. Up 1 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there's my other point. So you see I could easily have done my rise over run ratio on the graph as well. But again, most of the time we're not given the graph, as you'll see in these next examples. You're just given the points. So what do? You start with your formula, and you go to your formula and you say change in y over change in x. Slope is equal to change in the y, change in the rise, over change in the run, which is our x values. So let's replace. M is equal to 20 minus 12 over 10 minus 4. Go ahead and find that change. That changes the difference. I'm going to get 8 over 6, which simplifies. I'm going to keep it as a fraction because it's a ratio. Divide by the common factor of 2. I'll get a 4 to 3 ratio, and there's my slope, and it's positive. Let's try 1 or 2 more. And then we'll see a couple of unique ones. In this next one, we have 6 minus 5 over 9 minus 6. Find that change, and there's my slope. I did mention there'll be a couple of others that are slightly different, and here would be one of them. Negative 6 minus 10, and 4 minus 4. Well, remember, subtraction tells us to add the opposite, so I'll get a negative 16 over 0. When 0 is the bottom number, it's under the fraction bar. This is undefined slope. We can never divide by 0, so that's another reason to remember that. But think if the 0 is under the fraction bar, it's undefined. Okay, so that's one of the two unique ones. And I believe there's one more, perhaps on our next slide. Yes, okay, so slope is equal to change in y, 8 minus 8 over negative 3 minus a negative 4. When I find the change or the difference, I get 0, add the opposite over 1. When 0 is in this top portion, talking about the change in the rise, this slope is 0. Okay, so when I graph something like that, I'm going to have a slope that goes straight line across, and that's a 0 slope. Going back just a moment to our other, if I wanted to graph this here, this would be some sort of undefined slope. Okay, so there's going to be some sort of line somewhere where it is a vertical line, so undefined is a vertical line. And in my 0 slope, and I remember telling you this before, this is a 0 slope, and 0 and horizontal go together. So this is a horizontal line, and it's a 0 slope. There's one more here for you to try. 7 minus 4 over 2 minus a negative 3. Find that change. It's 3. Add the opposite over 5. My slope is 3/5, and it's positive. So there's a little practice on that, and we'll do some more if need be in class.